Hi there guys, welcome to Seasick Pirate Studios. Curtis here again with another painting tutorial. In our last video, we painted some Dark Angels ready for the 9th edition Codex release. Well, we're going to be sticking with that theme, and in this episode we're going to be painting one of the most challenging units to paint in the Dark Angels arsenal. Of course, I'm talking about Deathwing. So cream coloured armour and bone coloured armour have always been a bit of a challenge, so hopefully this video will help you get your Deathwing or your bladeguard veterans ready for the tabletop. If you want to check out the last episode on Dark Angels, I'll leave a link in the description, or you can click on the icon in the top corner of the screen. But for now, grab your paints, grab your brushes, and let's get started. So here we have our bladeguard veteran. I've sub-assembled some parts of the miniature to make it easier to paint. Seeing as we're painting Deathwing, I've primed this model with Corax white. This will help achieve that nice light bone armour colour that Deathwing are famous for. It's important that when priming your models that you can't see any of the grey plastic showing through, as this will affect the finished model. If so, when dry you can either spray the model again or touch up with some Corax white paint. So for the first step on the armour, we're going to do a mix of contrast skeleton horde and technical contrast medium at a 2:1 ratio. So we're looking for a consistency a bit like this. Now we're going to get our medium shade brush. We're going to get some of this all over the brush, and what we're going to do is just pick out a panel and just start painting this all over the miniature. Now another important step while doing this part of the model is to make sure that your brush, your palette and your water are all clean, because we don't want to contaminate the paint and mess this colour up. And like with contrasts and washes, you want to keep an eye out for pooling as well. So take your time. If you do see any pooling, just dry your brush off and just mop those areas up. So now the skeleton horde contrast has dried, we've got a really nice base coat for that bone armour. So next we're going to move on to blacking in all of the areas that we're going to be painting metal and all the cloth as well. So for this we're going to get some Abaddon black, and we've got some here on our palette. We've watered it down. Now you want to be very careful not to touch any of the armour areas, but what you want to do is just go around and black in all the parts that we want to be darker. Now we've finished blacking in, we're going to paint the robes green, and we're also going to be painting the chest eagle the same colour. So for a start, we're going to use Caliban green. We're then going to give it a wash of Nuln oil. Then we're going to start layering up again with warpstone glow, and then we're going to highlight with moot green. So we've got some Caliban green on our palette. I've watered it down. Now just be careful of all that bone armour. And we just want to paint this over all the areas of the robes and the chest eagle as well. Now you will need 2 thin coats of this paint just to get a solid colour. So we've got a nice strong build up to work on. So now the first layer is dried, we're going to give it an all over wash of Nuln oil. So we've got some on our palette here, just going to load our brush up, and we're just going to paint this all over the area, just focusing it into those recesses, just to get some nice shade on that green. So now that that Nuln oil wash has dried all over the robes, we're going to start layering up with warpstone glow. So I've got a small detail brush here. We're going to get some on the end of our brush. Now I've watered this down. This will take a few coats to layer up, but if you stick with it, you'll get a really good result. So we just want to start layering up all over the robes, trying to keep it nice and even. Just want to be careful of that armour as well. And what we want to do is we want to layer up on the raised and flat parts, but the recesses we want to leave nice and dark. So now that we've built up the warpstone glow all over the robes and the crest in the middle of the armour, we're going to give them a highlight with moot green. So we've got some moot green on our palette just here. Just going to get some onto our fine detail brush. And what you want to do is just give this an edge highlight. So just use the side of your brush and just drag it down the side of the cloth and along the bottom as well. So again, just being very careful of the armour. Just paint around the bottom like that. So really make those robes stand out. Really cool. And on the chest eagle, what we want to do is just on the very ends, just paint a line, just to highlight all those little bits there. So after a highlight of moot green, all of our green areas are now complete. So our robes are looking really clean and crisp, and the crest in the middle of the armour is looking really cool. So for the next part, we're going to move on to the shield. Now we're going to be painting the middle of the shield with mephiston red. We're then going to give it a wash of Nuln oil, and then we're going to give it a highlight of evil sunz scarlet. Now we're doing this part before we paint the gold, just makes it a bit easier. So we've got some red on our palette, some mephiston red, and what we're going to do, just load our brush up and we're just going to paint the inside of the shield, and we want to do it on the other side as well. Now this might need a couple of layers just to get a nice block colour on there. Doesn't matter if you get any on the edges here, because we're going to be painting those gold anyway. So now that the mephiston red has dried over the shield, we're going to give it a wash with Nuln oil. So we've got some on our palette just here, just going to get some onto our wash brush. And what we're going to do is just paint this all over the red area. Now just watch for pooling. And it doesn't matter if we get any on the white areas of the shield, because we're going to be painting those gold anyway. But just be careful of the armoured hand. Just give that a nice cover up. So now that the Nuln oil has dried all over the red, we're going to give it a highlight with evil sunz scarlet. So we've got some here on our palette, just going to get some onto the end of our detail brush. And what we're looking to do is just go around all the edges just here, just do a nice highlight. Not going into the recess, just highlighting that red. So now we've finished highlighting the red part on the shield, it's now time to paint all the gold. So we're going to be doing around the outside of the shield, we're going to be doing all the bits in the middle as well. We're going to be doing the top of the knee pads, the skulls, we're going to do all the bits hanging off his belt and around all the shoulder pads as well. So on the backpack, or the power pack I should say, we're also going to be doing the iron halo. So we're going to do this in 3 steps. We're going to go with Retributor armour. We're then going to give it a wash of Reikland fleshshade, and then we're going to highlight it all with sycorax bronze. So we've got some Liberator gold on our palette. Just give that a mix. So we're going to go around the outside of the shield. Just be careful of that red that you've painted. So you do want to take your time. But don't be too disheartened if you do make any mistakes or touch any of that red like I just did there. You can come back and tidy it up with mephiston red and some evil sun scarlet. Now one bit you do need to be very careful with is all the armour plates. So we're just going to paint this part of the shoulder pad. All the little icons. And we're going to do the top of the shoulder pad, the knee pad even. And we're going to paint the skulls as well. So after basing all of the areas with Retributor armour, we're now going to give them a wash with Reikland fleshshade gloss. So we've got some here on our palette. Just going to gather some up onto our brush. Now we're just going to go over all of the gold parts here. Just being very careful. Just want to give them a nice cover up. Just watch for pooling. If there is any pooling, just mop it up with your brush. We're going to do all the gold parts here, so even around the shield. We're going to do the iron halo as well. All the skulls. And the knee pads. Just like that. So now that the wash has dried all over those gold areas, we're going to highlight our gold with some sycorax bronze. This will give it a nice warm tone and make it stand out really nicely. Now after this step, you can take it a step further and give it a very fine highlight of runefang steel, but for now the sycorax bronze will do. So what we're going to do is just get some onto our detail brush, and we're just going to go over all of the lines and the edges of all the gold areas. So after highlighting all of the gold areas with that bronze, it's now standing out really nicely and looks really cool. So for the next part, we're going to be working on the holster for his gun, and we're going to be working on the belt. So we're going to be painting these brown. So we're going to give them a base of oil.doombull brown. We're then going to wash them with agrax earthshade, and then we're going to highlight all the raised areas with scrag brown. So we've got some oil.doombull brown on our palette. We're just going to get some on the end of our brush. And we're just going to paint this all over the holster. And we're going to put some around the belt as well. 3, 2, 1. So now the oil.doombull brown has dried, we're going to give those areas an all over wash with agrax earthshade. So we've got some here onto our brush, we're just going to paint this all over, just like all the other washes. Just watch for pooling and just be careful of the armour as well. So now that that wash is dried, we're just going to give the brown areas now a highlight with Scrag Brown. So we're going to get some onto our detail brush, and we're just looking to highlight all the edges down here. Just get the side of your brush, drag a line down like that. And go along the lip of the lid. Do the belt as well, so just do a line at the top and a line at the bottom. Going to go into the center of the buckle as well. And all the pouches at the back, you just want to do the very edges, just like the one on the front. So now that the highlight has dried all over the brown parts, like the holster and the belt and the pouches on the back, those parts are now all complete. So next we're going to be moving on to all the metals. So we're going to be painting the belt buckle, and we're going to be painting the vents on the power pack. We're going to be painting those with lead belcher. We're then going to give them a wash of Nuln oil gloss, and then we're going to give them a highlight of ironhands steel. Now for the power blade, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be painting it with ironbreaker for a base. I'm then going to give it a wash with contrast aethermatic blue, and then I'm going to give it a highlight of runefang steel, and we'll see how we get on with that. So we've got some lead belcher on our palette just here, going to get some onto our brush, and we're just going to base all of the vents. Going to paint all of these parts as well on the back. See, the reason we leave the power pack separate from the rest of the armour is so we can get to these parts. So you just want to give those a base. You might want to give them 2 coats just to get a decent foundation. And what we want to do as well, we want to paint the belt buckle. So you need a steady hand. You just want to So for the sword, we're going to get some ironbreaker onto our brush, and we're just going to paint this all over the blade, right up to the hilt. Just give this a good once over. Make sure it goes on nice and flat. You don't want any streaks on the blade. Just make sure you cover up all of that white so none of it's showing through. So now that all our metal areas are based and dry, we're going to give them a wash with Nuln oil gloss. So we're going to be doing the vents on the power pack, we're going to be doing the belt buckle, but we're going to leave the blade because we're going to be using our contrast paint on it. So we've got some Nuln oil gloss on our brush, and what you want to do is just paint this over all the metal areas. Just to give them some contrast. Just be careful of the white armour. So to make the blade look like it's glowing blue with energy, we're going to be using some aethermatic blue from the contrast range. And what we're going to do is just get some on our brush and paint this over that power cable just there. And we're going to do one on the other side as well. This will just make it look like there's power going through the blade. Give it a bit of glow. So now the Nuln oil gloss has dried all over our metal areas, we're going to give them a highlight of ironhands steel. So we've got some here on our palette, we're going to get some on our detail brush, and what we're looking to do is just highlight all the silver areas along the top, just to make them stand out nicely. Now that the contrast has dried over our power blade, we're going to highlight it with some runefang steel. So we're going to get some on our detail brush here, and what you want to do is just highlight the top of the power node along that line as well, and you want to do along the edges of the blade as well. So after highlighting all the metal areas, complete. I've assembled the rest of the miniature, painted in the details like the eyes, the purity seals, and I've painted all of the ribbing between the armour as well with some eshin grey. So if you're happy with the miniature at this point, you can leave it there, but there are a few more steps to really make the armour pop. I've left these steps till last because they're quite time consuming and they need a steady hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to wash in all the recesses with some agrax earthshade. Then we're going to highlight all the armour panels with some screaming skull. So we've got some agrax earthshade onto our palette. You need a fine detail brush for this part. And all you want to do is just go around all the recesses of the armour like this little box here. You just want to paint inside all of those. You do want to be very careful while doing this step. Try not to get any all over the flatter areas, otherwise it will show up. So after washing all of the recesses with agrax earthshade, we've now got lots of definition between those armour plates. So for the last step, all we need to do is highlight all of the edges of the armour plates with some screaming skull. So we've got some here on our palette, we're just going to get some onto our fine detail brush. Now you want to make sure you've got a nice clean brush for this, and you've got clean water as well, because you don't want to contaminate any of the screaming skull. And what you want to do is just pick out all of the fine edges and just paint a line down all of them. So after highlighting all of the armour panels with screaming skull and tidying up that wash, our miniature is now complete. So all we need to do now is base him and put the transfers on, and he's ready to join his battle brothers in the Indomitus campaign to fight off all those pesky Necrons. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and if you enjoyed this tutorial, check out some of our other videos on the channel. Take care, and we'll see you next time.